I just once again stumbled on this much talk about Tinubu marginalizing the North, always coming from Northern Elders Forum. And their justification has always been the Lagos-Calabar coastal road that is governing 1.34 trillion naira. But they forgot in a hurry how a Buhari's government spent well over 1.96 billion US dollar, which is equivalent to 2.9 trillion, and that is almost 3 trillion naira, just building rail projects from Nigeria to Niger. You need to ask of what importance is that to Nigerians when their welfare and security have not been taken care of. This one may not even be too noticeable, and most people may not even know this, that even Buhari's government spent 19 billion US dollar, which is equivalent to 29.something trillion naira, just to fix Nigerian refineries. And at the end of the day, they are not working. Just a quick reminder, look at the facts about this. I'm reading from this day. He said, Sule, Buhari spent over 19 billion US dollar on fixing refineries in 8 years without results. You go further to say that the governor of Nasarawa State, Mr. Abdullahi Sule, yesterday stated that the Muhammadu Buhari administration expended over 19 billion US dollar on repairing Nigeria's 4 refineries in 8 years without commensurate results. Speaking on Channels Television, the governor, who was managing director of African Petroleum AP about 2 decades ago, stated that the process of fixing the country's refineries was largely mismanaged. But remember that the government recently said they want to sell the refineries, which is an indication that the refineries didn't work in the first place, meaning all the money spent, talking about the whole of that money, is now a waste. So for purpose of emphasis, because someone need to put the North in their place, though I'm not even a fan of Tinubu himself, but at times I think somebody should put them on check. Just for purpose of emphasis, let us equally look at this one that has to do with ways and means, where the government of Muhammadu Buhari spend lavishly, and of course, as we speak, nobody have been able to probe or ask any question. He said, Senate probes 30 trillion ways and means obtained by Buhari administration from CBN. You go further to say that the Senate on Tuesday resolved to probe the 30 trillion ways and means loan obtained by the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari from the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. The upper chamber consequently constituted an ad hoc committee to interrogate the disbursement and usage of the loan. But let me quickly say at this point that when you talk about ways and means, it's constitutional in Nigeria. It is just a way of federal government borrowing money from CBN to do projects that is perhaps not captured in the budget, or maybe they want to use it to take care of deficiency in funded projects. But what the constitution says is that you cannot borrow beyond 5% of your annual budgets. And in all of this, we are talking about why the Buhari held sway as the president. He borrowed almost every fiscal year. He was borrowing through that ways and means, through that window, more than what the constitution allowed. Talking about the 5% that is not going to be more than 5% of your annual budget. And what the constitution says is that if you borrow and you have not paid what you borrowed in the preceding year, you are not allowed to borrow by law. But all this, the government did not observe. So you begin to wonder when they start talking about all these things in the North. I understand the reason is not far-fetched, because they're already preparing ground for 2027 election. So they always want to discredit whoever is government, trying to talk about marginalization. If we're even talking about marginalization, let us even think of it. When Buhari was the president, in security positions, we have about 17. Talking about the office of the security advisor, national security advisor, to the office of the chief of defense staff, chief of air staff, chief of naval staff, chief of director of DSS, the man in charge of customs, that is the director general of control general of custom, the man in charge of drug law. When you mention it, it's about 17. the North took about 13 or 14 or so, leaving only about 3 or 4 for the southern part of the country. So I don't think the North is justified to start talking about marginalization. I understand that all this gimmick, all this maneuvering is because of 2027. Though it doesn't matter the opinion of the North anyway. The man who is in Aso Rock, talking about Senator Bola Armed Tinubu, still have 2 years in Aso Rock. So he must be there for the next 2 years. But my only major problem with this government is the inability of this government to fight Fulani militias head on. That's my major problem with this government. But when they not talk about marginalization, I'm going to tell you that they are not justified to talk about marginalization. Because even after the man who spoke about how Buhari was brought into politics, talking about Buba Galadima, their reasons, their ulterior motive, the intention of drafting Buhari into politics. Little did we know that it was because of fighting jihad, which they did even in 14th century. Little do we know that it was because of what they perceive as the excesses of the OPC, which according to them was trying to dismantle the Fulani structure in Ilore. Needless going into all of Janta Alimi and Afoja story. But the point here is the North is not justified. So start talking about marginalization. Because as it stands, it doesn't matter the opinion of anybody, the South must have their 8 years. So it is irrespective of whether the North is satisfied with the situation or not, they must learn to tolerate when other people are in power. Because when they had the opportunity to govern, they had their own 8 years. Though the way it is, I understand that electioneering process have already begun, seeing activities here and there, seeing the opposition coming together in form of coalition, seeing the likes of seeing the likes of Atiku, Erufai, the likes of Babachilawa, the likes of Malami, and all of that coming together in that coalition. But what is worrisome is the way and manner they are going about it. Because we understand that the way it stands, this issue of primary of the coalition is a very big issue. Because I'm making it very, very clear that all the aspirants have agreed to enter into an oath, into a covenant, into an agreement, that anyone that emerged through the process of primary, that all the aspirants will support the person. So the question people are now asking is the coalition interested in allowing the southern part of the country to complete their 8 years? Because the understanding of everybody was that they were going to zone the issue, the ticket to the south, to enable the south to complete their 8 years. So that is even the basis for people are now asking, why were these people tactical enough to draft Obi into the coalition? Because to be quite honest with you, when people saw Obi in that coalition, every hope was that Obi is going to be the man that will fly the flag of that coalition, that people will concede, owing to the fact that they not already know that the South have another 4 years in Aso Rock, going by the understanding that if they not govern for 8 years, it come back to the South, you start to govern for 8 years. So seeing the likes of Atiku already telling the world recently that in his government, if he wins, that he's going to give 70% attention to youth and women. So that is a clear indication, a clear signal, a red line for Anobi that, hey, look out for this man. He's eventually going to contest. So if anybody is telling anyone before now that there's going to be concession in terms of conceding to the South and perhaps allowing Obi to fly the flag, I think that is already a mirage in that coalition. And equally, if you just suppose that with the statement that equally came with the former governor of Jigawa State, talking about Sule Lamido, who said the other time that if Obi win the primary, he's going to support Obi. So it's going to show that within their own caucus, within their own inner circle, they have concluded that yes, and Atiku will contest. And we all know what Atiku stands for. We all know that Atiku is a master of the game when it comes to primary election. We equally saw how Obi have to lead PDP in the build-up to 2023 presidential election, particularly the primary of the party. Haven't seen the handwriting on the wall that all have been planned to ensure that Atiku Abubakar become the flag bearer of the party. And eventually, it turned out that he clinched the party flag. He became the party flag bearer. But the point here is it not a trap? A situation where they want to leverage on Obi's popularity, leverage on the followership of Obi, talking about the obedient movement. Because I am foreseeing a situation where after they have done the primary and perhaps an article have emerged, there may not be enough time for people to be to even run to other political parties to start talking about how to get ticket of other parties. And if that is the situation, they will start prevailing on him to deputize Atiku. But I don't think that is the intention and opinion of anybody who is supporting Obi, because we understand that Obi represents hope for this current generation. Because Obi is somebody who has exemplified himself in governance. Talking about someone who rejected an oil block, a Nigerian politician, that is quite mind-boggling. Someone who, even after the news came out recently that he once worked with Abacha, when the results or when the details will come out, it turned out that he was even the one that was able to crack a mystery, talking about how to decongest the ports. And of course, Obi have been proven over and again as someone that is prudent in terms of management of scarce government resources. Obi is somebody who have been proven to cut cost of governance. And I think that is the kind of person we need, because if you look at Obi himself, he has made it very clear when he said that in governance, if you remove your family for corruption, you have solved the problem of corruption 50%. I think I totally agree with him. Because if you look at all that happens in governance, when they talk about kitchen cabinet, those who would influence in the government, they are often people from the president or the governor, environment, friends, and family, majorly. So I think the North should realize it's not a matter of I have the right to contest. Because what I'm saying is without prejudice to the right of Atiku himself to contest, because the constitution is very clear that if you have not, once you are educated up to secondary school level and you don't have criminal record as some other criteria, you are eligible to contest at least up to 2 times. But I understand that Atiku have not governed Nigeria as a president before now. So to that extent, he is eminently qualified to govern. That's why I say without prejudice to his right, to his eligibility to contest. But the point here is we must respect that gentleman agreement, that unwritten agreement, that tacit agreement that says if Sir rule for 8 years, they not rule for 8 years. That understanding is releasing after an Obasanjo finished his 8 years. He went to the north. We saw Yaradua. Though Yaradua, unfortunately, he could not complete his 8 years because of Demis. Jonathan took over. After Jonathan, he went to the north. He was governed for 8 years before he came to the south, and Tinubu is now in the saddle. So it's understandable that the south should be in Asu Rock up to 2027. It could be an Obi, it could be a Tinubu, it could be someone else from the south. It depends on, once the election is free, fair, and credible, it depends on who wins the election. But if you ask me as a person, I would prefer an Obi. But however, the important thing is it must be south because it's the turn of the south. And the north must understand that it's a bitter truth, of course. The north must swallow. It's a bitter pill the north have to swallow. Because I understand that even someone like Arafai, who of course was very close to Tinubu before the 2023 presidential election, and understandably, he worked for Tinubu to emerge even the APC presidential candidate. And I believe it is all over the media that he played a pivotal role even in the general election to see that Tinubu succeed. But it doesn't matter his level of grievance. Perhaps he should suspend and carry the grievance over and allow the South to complete their 8 years. I know he's now like the arch enemy of the current president, talking about Senator Bola Armed Tinubu, they may have their differences. He may be justified on his position, because I equally believe that the president may not have treated him well, because it's obvious that he was nominated for ministerial position. And at a point, the Senate claimed that there was a security report that indicted him. He have equally come out by himself to clarify that there was no security report that indicted him, that it was the president who at some point changed his mind and didn't want him to serve in his government. I think that is the issue between both of them. They can always sort it out. But that should not jeopardize the interest of the South. That should not jeopardize the turn of the South to do their 8 years in Aso Rock. I think this is a good place to let it go. Thank you very much. This is Lamida and I'm Samatu.